I want to do some Mica Shift, and I like my metallic Primos for this, but I also don't just want to do it silver. So I'm going to blend together a chunk of silver with some of this, which is antique gold. You can see here how I already see some mica shifting on the side. And I'm going to put a drop of this blue in there because I wanted to have a little bit of a color. I'm hoping that I'm going to get sort of a, they call it German silver, like a color that's somewhere between silver and gold with a little sheen of the blue. So let's mix a color, and we're going to mix it through the pasta machine many, many times in the same direction until all of the mica particles are lined up, and you'll understand what that means when we do the next step. I just want to show you how much clay I'm working with so that you know how to make a color of your own. So see this? This is Mica Shift happening right in my gold clay as I'm rolling it flat. So I've got that much gold, this much silver, so more silver than gold, and a couple of chunks of blue is what I'm going to be working with and mixing together. So you'll get to see what that looks like. And I believe this is ultramarine blue from Premo. It came from my scrap drawer of opened, I keep everything that I've opened in a drawer together, so it doesn't have a label on it, but I'm pretty sure that's ultramarine. All right, so you can see here, this is a beautiful mica shift that just happened from rolling the clay flat. And here, and let's go mix these all together. All right, so I'm going to make this bookmark. I have my base clay here is number 3 on my pasta machine, but I'm going to go thinner. One of the things that I want to say about making clay bookmarks is this. As an avid reader, there's no way I'm going to stick a 2mm thick bookmark in one of my actual books, right? And people make them so thick, I just wonder about the longevity of the books after you break their spine with a really fat bookmark. So I'm going to make mine quite thin, and that's totally fine because the clay is very strong and flexible. Premo is a really great clay for this. So I'm going to take this piece, which is enough clay to make my bookmark, and I'm going to make this even thinner so that I can layer, because the Mica Shift is going to be a bunch of layered pieces on here anyway. And it's going to make it thicker, and then I'm going to roll it thinner again. So start with a piece that you know is big enough for the bookmark, and then we're going to go much thinner. I'm going to go down to a number 5 on my pasta machine. So here's the 5. It's very thin, and it's fine. I could even make my clay piece out of just this, and it would be totally okay. Right, so I am going to put this up here. Yeah, I might move it down. Let me see what I'm doing first. But I'm going to cut off the extra because I know I just don't need to make it that big. Set this aside. All right, there's plenty of room in here for me to cut out the bookmark. Now, here's where we do the Mica Shift. We have this piece of clay that's been rolled many, many times to make it nice and smooth and a single color, right? So I've got this grayish kind of a color I really like. It's sort of blue in person, like a gray blue. It's not that bright silver that it started as. And here on the side is where you can kind of see the dullness. If you look up here, you can see the dull edge versus the shiny front. So what we're going to do is play with that, play between the colors. And how we're going to do that, I am going to move this down so I can get it closer to where I'm working and see what I'm doing. How we're going to do that is by cutting slices. Now, there are multiple ways of doing this. I'm going to shorten this up to make it easier for me to cut. One way, here, I might do some other stuff on the side here to kind of show you. One way I like to Mica Shift is just to twist. If you twist and lay the clay down, and I might do this for this project, I don't know. Haven't quite picked my way of doing it yet. But if you twist it and lay it down, what happens here, let's just do a little demo. What happens here is we get the mica shifting. And it looks like this. And that's not two colors of clay, that's one color of clay. All right. You can do other ways. Some people like to make like a spiral with it. I like to kind of weave it. Since rattan is popular right now, I was going to see if maybe I can weave. So we'll take a slice and put it face up, shiny side up on the clay. And we're not pressing it down except for just the end here. Press. And then the next piece, we'll make a nice thin piece. But this one we are going to turn sideways. And it's going to have the dull side facing up. And I'm not going to press it down again, I'm just going to press it here. All right, so I've got enough width here to do my bookmark because it's going to stretch out a little bit. So I'm going to turn this sideways and start making pieces that I can weave. So let's see how difficult this is going to be, because, you know, weaving is not the easiest thing. We're going to pull back, and I'm probably not going to weave the whole thing because I don't want to drive myself insane. So I'm going to pick the shiny ones back. Pulling the shiny ones back. That way every other one is coming back here, and I know that it's the shiny side up. And then I'm going to put a shiny side up piece going across here. I'm just going to use my tool and a little bit of tension to press it down where that other piece of clay is going to come back over top of it. Like this. And I'm not going to worry too much about bringing this shiny side up piece all the way. I mean, I can lay it here because the next row is going to be the other one. And since I am not here, let's do ourselves a favor. Since I'm going to be gentle and I'm not going to weave the whole thing, I'm going to go ahead and do this again in a couple other. Well, I can't. Okay, I'll show you why I can't. Because I do intend to weave the other color. So here we go. Just thinking it through before I do something unfixable. As long as you don't press on these, you're fine. Just gently lay them back. This is going to be, the weaving part is going to be slightly tedious, but it's going to look cool when we're done, okay? So I'm just going to show you these 2 rows, and then you decide how you want to complete yours. So I'm just going to lay them in here, and then I'm going to peel back the dull side. Right, so these are the ones that I put on there with the dull side facing up. And we will put another one of these coming across right here. And just kind of touching it down in this channel so that this piece of clay can float over the top of it as we come back down. Right, dull side up. Being pretty gentle, and I'm just touching this piece of clay down in this groove that I made so that it stays where I want it as I'm manipulating the clay pieces back and forth. Okay, so now I have this little weave going on. Let's go this one more time. We're go back with the shiny ones. Basically, it's every other one. And the coolest thing about this technique is that it's all done with one color of clay. And as I touch them and move them around, they're wanting to change, and I don't want them to. I want them to stay shiny or dull side up, so I know what I'm working with each time I come down the row here to pull back a piece. Okay, so now we'll cut off another piece of this. Put it right here. Press it down in these little channels. Press these down shiny side up. So they stay put over the weave. All right, I'm feeling that that is enough weaving. So now I'm going to spend a couple minutes here with my tool. This is a pedal and point tool from Create Along. And this is the reason why you want tools like this, because they get places where your fingers don't get so well. I want all of these to be facing in the proper direction with the right amount of space between them, going straight. You know, some of them got flipped over during the process, and like this one, the dark section of it is not facing upright, so I want to fix all of this before I go to the next step, which will be rolling it flat. So I'm going to make sure everything is all lined up properly here. For the most part, I mean, I'm not being super precise and neat, but I do want this to show the stripy Mica Shift. That's the whole purpose of doing it this way, right? So we want to make sure that if it's supposed to be facing up, that it is, and if it's supposed to be facing sideways, that it is doing that. And that they're more or less straight going in a line here. Okay, so now they are, and we're going to start to flatten this out. We're going to go in multiple directions and take it easy. Not go for the whole thing all at once. We're going to lift it up off of the surface. So especially for me, because this is an unglazed tile with some texture, I don't want it to get all stuck down to that and then distort too much when I pull it off. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's lifted as I roll. See that cool pattern we're getting? And that is just the clay. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and back it with some more clay that is rolled to that number 5 thinness so that I can further stretch this out without like making it so thin that it's not usable, okay? This right here is your secret weapon when you're trying to make a piece of clay that's kind of thin into something that's not so thin. So I'm going to go ahead and use the back side. Since this side is nice looking, let's use the back. And we're just going to layer this. And keep stretching this. What I'm really trying to do, excuse me, is flatten this completely so that you can't feel what's going on there anymore with texture, and it's just completely flat. It's going to take rolling it in multiple directions, not just one direction, or else you'll lose your pattern. You'll stretch it out, it'll be weird. We want this to be patterned and totally flat to the touch. All right. Just getting rid of pieces that I know I'm not going to use before I pick this up. And gauge where I'm at as far as thinness, which I'm very thick for a bookmark, I think. Right, I've got plenty of clay to work with here. I'm going to go to the pasta machine and take this down to a thinner size. Okay, this is a number 3, and I like that. It's quite thin, but it's still going to be a great bookmark. Look at how cool this is. This is completely, totally flat. All of the different colors and textures that you think you see are actually mica particles in the clay, throwing the light around in different directions. In some directions, it actually looks like it's glowing. And I can imagine taking your time to do an even more detailed piece and it coming out so, so cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut a section of this to be my bookmark. Just decide which part of it you like the best. I'm going to use my presser because this is a big cutter and I find that I do better with it when I use a acrylic block to get the whole thing. Now I even have enough left to make some earrings. And it needs a hole, so we'll find a tool to make a good hole for a bookmark, which I'm going to use one of these. How about this one? Has a good sized hole on the end. Perfect. And let's bake this. Let's make a textured bookmark while we're at it. I like this one. This is my goddess bookmark. And I've got my henna lace mat. And I really love this, even though it's a very thin lace mat, okay, you can still make a good impression with it if you're careful. So how I like to do it is I like to take my rod and really press down and kind of stick it on the clay. I'm applying some good pressure here. Wiggling my rod just a little. And then I'm going to start in the middle and gently give it a roll in both directions. What you don't want to do is make a ghost image by rolling over it too many times both ways. You want to try to give it one good roll. And then we're going to lift it from the surface and cut the part that you like. Beautiful. We're going to put this on our baking tray. As I'm rolling up the scraps, I'm getting yet more mica shifting, so I'm just going to show you a really fun and easy way to do this. Just by capitalizing on the fact that the edges are going to have that dark brown color, or the dark color, whatever color it is. So you can make little squiggles and wiggles and chunks. Keep adding to it until you like what you see. Because I'm just going to take this to the pasta roller to finish it off. You can make them crisscross each other. Put little pieces or big pieces. Make patterns intentionally if you want to, or just be abstract. Okay, let's take this to the pasta machine and see what we get. That's it. No seams, no lines, no texture, completely flat. And look at all that fun light reflecting. So let's make another bookmark. Just something fun, pull out one of these patterns. Again, find a tool to make a good hole near the top for your tassel or beads or whatever you want to put there. I'll put this on the baking tray, and I think I'm going to make some paper beads out of this. What are paper beads, you ask? Well, if you remember rolling paper when you were a kid, that's what I'm talking about. And we have a bunch of cutters to help you make beads that look like paper beads. Now I want my clay to be really thin to make these. So I'm gonna make this as thin as I can get it on my pasta machine, probably like a 6 or a 7 without it starting to ripple. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 different kinds so you can see the difference and why you might want different cutters. So this one's gonna make a round bead. Just gonna cut this. With the aid of my acrylic press. And it's going to be flimsy because I made this thin. And I'm going to get a bead pin. And how you make these is you roll them up as if it were paper. So we're going to start it by rolling it around the pin here. And then I like to kind of hold on to the end and put it under a little bit of tension so that as I'm rolling this, I keep this nice and straight. Now part of this shape of this bead is determined by how thick you make the clay. Thicker clay is going to be a rounder bead. Super fun. That's going to go on my baking rack. And let's make this barrel shaped one because it's a little different. Plenty of clay there to make more beads. So you want to flip these over so that the design is on the outside. And then it's up to you. Do you want to put something there? I always want to put something there. The answer to that question is always yes. In my case, a big sparkle. Right there. And this is a hot fix stone, so it's going to stay where I put it. It's going to bake right on there. Isn't that cool? You could put it on both sides if you want to, which of course I want to. Especially since this is going to be dangling off of a bookmark, so it might as well be pretty no matter which side you see it on. And because I'm building it on the pin, now I've got a spot for it to be strung afterwards. Okay, so this has a special glue on the back. It's going to heat up in the oven and stick itself there permanently. We are out of the oven. And here's my trick, okay, for when your clay piece has little rough edges from the cutter. Just use your fingernail and swipe along the edge. There's no need to sand everything. This one only had a little bit right over here where I must not have pressed down like flat with the cutter on this edge. The rest of them are totally fine, okay? So let's move these out of the way because I made this bead with decorations on the sides. All right, and I want to use it. And I've got some thread here. This is Nymo. It's a nylon thread. People use it for jewelry making and for micro macrame, and it's perfect for this. So I'm just going to cut off a generous piece. And in the middle here, we're going to try to get it equal. Right, and in the middle, I'm going to wrap this around my bookmark. This is called a lark's head knot. It's a very basic macrame knot where you put a loop through the hole and then you put both pieces back through it and pull it. Okay. And then I'm going to slide this bead on here, possibly onto just one. Let's see if I can fit it on both strings because I may not have made the hole big enough. So I want it to go through both strings, so let's play with that. Got my trusty drill here. I'm just going to drill this hole bigger. Because the bead pins are so thin and sharp, it just wasn't big enough, and I hadn't really decided how I would use it, so that's fine. We'll just see if we can get both of these strings through here now that I made the hole bigger. There we go. All right, and we're going to push it down pretty close to that knot and tie them off. And this is how I like to do it. I like to make a knot with both strings. And then take my bead pin and snug it up against where I want the knot to go, which is relatively close to the end of the bookmark, but not all the way. I want it to be able to slide down to about there. Okay. So this knot is going to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. And then let's add a tassel, because tassels are fun on bookmarks, right? But the tassel we're going to have to tie off with a different kind of knot. So let's make another knot further out. And then we have to put this tassel on one string because the hole here is too big to make the kind of knot that would just hold it there. So we're going to have to actually tie the tassel on. And I'm going to use a square knot, which means you tie the knot around your object, okay? And I want it to be able to go that way. So you tie your knot, and then you might want to look at an app or something to explain to you how a square knot works, because it's a specific type of knot that doesn't come out, okay? And it's used a lot in macrame also. I'm going to tie 2 of them and put a little dot of glue. It's the most secure way to deal with this type of thread. Okay, you could also burn the ends and melt them, which I might also do. But first, let's get these nice and tight here. Because this is a nylon thread, not cotton or anything, so you can singe the ends with a little flame like you would with a big nylon rope to keep it from fraying. Okay, but I have glue. So I've got some Loctite liquid super glue. You could also use a Gorilla Glue, but this is just for this knot in the end here to keep it from coming out. So I like to just put a dot on the knot and let it dry. Right, and there you have it, a really pretty bookmark. And we've got the other 2 here. Now, and we've got the other 2. Here's how they baked up. So cool. And this is all completely flat. The surface just changes with the light. That one came out very cool. I also cut out some earring pieces so that I can make some earrings, which I will do on Instagram. And I hope to see you soon. Come on back for some more Create Along.